Here we go. Back to the Iron Sights podcast after dark. JP, what is up?
What up, man?
Good to have you back. What a great day this day has been. Like, we're wrapping it up. Started early today out on the range training. It's Friday.
Yeah.
Fridays are always the best day of the week because on Fridays, we train. We get outside and train.
Mm-hmm. It was a beautiful day, too. Really nice to be outside.
Oh, so nice here in the Bay Area. So blessed up here today. Just been a really good day overall. And, coming in today, we've kind of been going back and forth and decided, we really need to talk about this. And outside of not unrelated to today, when I was coming back from the range today, I was going, I've just seen so much stuff on social. And it's like deja vu for me because being from the fitness industry, I've been kind of watching things happen for a long time. And it's gotten a little bit better, if I'm being honest. But what I've been seeing is this huge kind of surge in new firearms instructors and new people within the consumer, I guess the consumer base, starting to go out and get firearms instruction, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Which is awesome, but it's become a little bit problematic.
Yeah, definitely. On the fitness end, I think it's happened way more because as we've talked about before, it's like an older game. It's been around a lot longer, a lot more popular for a lot longer, but with the firearms training, it's a lot newer, a lot more new people firearms training. I'm newer to firearms instruction, but it's the same thing as fitness. Once you understand something, right, and the pieces, the components that come together and how to coach somebody. But going on the internet and trying to understand what the reasoning is behind some of these videos I'm seeing where you're not really understanding, like, are you being tested or are you being taught something? Mm-hmm. When you go to a course, you pay to go to a course. Are they testing you? Are they teaching you? And are they telling you this is a test, like a Spartan race, right? Like, oh man, I got this gold medal, or I accomplished a Spartan race and however many miles those obstacle courses are. They're not teaching you anything. They're testing you and you get
the participation award at the end.
Yeah. But some of these courses you're going into them where at least you're seeing on social media that they're like selling you this thing, but they're teaching you. But really when you get there, you're being tested and they don't teach you shit. It's almost like they're getting off on seeing you go through it. But like, what's the value for the consumer?
Yeah, it's very much like the fitness industry. I mean, I've said this before, I'll say it again. Where we are in sort of the firearms community, this massive industry that exists and people are starting to come to it more than ever, actually, in history. The revenue that's available there and the opportunity that's available there, it reminds me a lot of fitness 10 years ago, particularly on the social media side of things. But it's not just the social media side of things. Social media just provides the platform for people to show and talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Albeit it's a little tougher to talk about this stuff in this particular genre, that is firearms or whatever, because it's taboo and it's being censored, and
there's a lot of censorship, there's a lot of fear and lack of understanding. And then like a CrossFit workout, for example, that's my space, right? A CrossFit workout's not going to kill you then and there if you fuck a CrossFit workout up or fuck up instruction with somebody. You're going to get injured, but I mean, it's not going to kill you. You fuck up firearms instruction, you might just fuck around and kill somebody.
Yeah, or just give them some sense of false sense of confidence or whatever, that they do know what they're doing, and then that ends up being problematic down the road, and it could be tragic. Yeah. I just see kind of this. Here's the challenges that I'm having with it. It's very easy to post a very like a sizzly type video, on the gram and get some attention for it, and all of a sudden, just like in fitness, as an influencer would be like, oh, this guy's got cool gear, the high speed gear. He shoots really well. He shoots fast, or at least appears to. He's got this, he's got this cool vibe, right? And it's being honest about it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's some, I aspire to be like that. Right. And so it goes from that to somehow that person being then turned into an authority. Right. And that person can automatically sort of be this expert. And my point of that is just like in fitness, there is an extraordinarily low barrier of entry that I don't think the consumer really understands.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't want to say, make a huge blanket statement and say that they're just dumb. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying they may not fully understand, particularly when you start getting into the world of something that may have been very obscure to them for a long time. Like in this case, we're talking about firearms. Could be anything, but low barrier of entry. I can go to a weekend course to become a personal trainer. And now I've got a certificate that's hanging on the wall, and I happen to have abs because I'm in good shape or whatever the case is. I've had success in the gym, and now I'm an expert. You know, I'm an expert. And if I can do really well on my social media, well, then that proves it. You got 10,000 followers. You're an expert, right? Like
that's
I should be coming
exactly
to you.
how the world is right now.
Pretty much how it works. And the reality of it is that's not how it works. And I think the fitness community has policed itself a little bit in the last couple of years. And you're starting to see, well, you still see a lot of, let's just say, garbage out there, but it's not quite what it was.
Yeah, I think it's much better now in the fitness industry. The information that's out makes it to where it's a lot harder to get bamboozled.
Yep, totally. But the people that are holding the industry accountable to that are come from both sides. It's both the consumer and the industry now is holding the industry to a higher standard, which is where it needed to get to. Because for so long there was that just wasn't happening. You could say and do whatever you wanted without repercussions, or again, with no questioning, and then literally sell somebody something and they would buy it, and people made a lot of money off selling snake oil or whatever it is. I guess my point of it is the consumer got more educated over time.
Yeah.
And the consumer started to hold, with that education, started to hold the industry to a higher standard. They started to ask better questions, started to see through the smoke screens. They started to read through the bullshit, and it has cleaned itself up. So again, my compare and contrast here is looking at the firearms industry. There is so much noise out there, so much traffic, and there's a lot of enthusiasm around it, right? Which then drives people to want to be a part of it. And it's the same low barrier of entry to become a firearms instructor or an expert, let's just say a subject matter expert in the field. But what does that really mean? Like, who's regulating that?
Yeah, no one is. And the internet's such a weird place, right? Because no one's like officially regulating that, but like there was an instructor here from the Bay Area that none of us know personally, that got tore up. Right. For some of the practices that he was doing and charging really low prices to get into his courses. And I guess his background was military. And so people are like, oh, he's ex-military, I'm going to take his courses. And then after seeing videos and stuff like that, some of his rationale to me personally didn't seem too crazy. But then seeing how he was going about instructing it, I was like, this fucking guy doesn't really know safety or what he's doing, or
it was the application.
Yeah.
But it's one thing to say it and have learned it from somebody or being taught from a study to take your test or study to pass your course. Yeah. But the application of this stuff is where the rubber really meets the road, and that's where that shit got crazy. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So, but that guy, like the internet, did it. Work on that guy.
Yeah, but how about this jackass out in where is he? Chicago? The dude, I mean, he's just being clown. I don't know where he is.
Okay, so I've had friends say, you know what? I think that guy's just a media content genius, and he's a comedian.
Oh, 1,000%. He is that.
But
he can also be. Yeah.
But I, from my own findings before he actually went viral, when I just seen a couple of his videos when it very first started happening months ago, I was like, who the fuck is this guy? You know what I mean? And I looked, and from what I collected, and I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure that this is what I seen. Apparently he did some executive protection training on a big level for people who didn't know any better, but he sold himself so well that actual people that were like security for like, I want to say it was like football stadiums and stuff, was training through him and represented him until he became viral, and then some of that stuff went away.
Yeah, it kind of got crazy. I think the point of that is whether the guy is an internet marketing genius, which I'm going to say, yeah, Part of this is,
I think at this point,
I think
whether
he's
he
a
was
little
or
bit,
wasn't,
he's a little bit more sophisticated than most people were originally giving him credit for. And whether you want to believe that or not, there's a lot of people out there that are still giving this guy oxygen by reposting his shit and talking shit about him, which just perpetuates the issue. But now it's become kind of comedy, right? In which case, like, he wins both ways, right? You want to talk?
No, that guy won in this situation.
He wins both ways. But for a long time, it was, again, like you said, people were actually going to him for legitimate instruction, quote, air quotes, legitimate instruction.
Yeah.
And he was an authority at whatever level. This is the same on the fitness industry side of things, right? People can say and do whatever. And as long as people are paying them, they're going to keep doing it. Because
I'll tell you what, man, being in CrossFit for as long as I've been in CrossFit, just because you took a weekend course, man, does not even come close to making you a coach. All that does is tell you corporately what they expect of their coaches.
You've met the minimum standard.
Yeah.
The minimum.
That does not make you a fucking coach.
Yeah, it's the same. So I would say this, I would go one step further, and I would say until you've been coaching for at least 3 years, you're still an infant
I think that's accurate.
in the industry, because it takes that long to take the reps. You have not had the reps to understand how that theory that you may have learned, whether it was in a 4-year, college institution, which then turned into an advanced level degree, which then turned into some certification that you're hanging on the wall in there. You haven't had the practical experience to understand how that theory really looks in the real world at all those different levels. And I'm not saying at 3 years you're awesome. I'm just saying it takes 3 years for you to kind of realize what I just said.
Well, to live through shit, to like experience like all shapes and sizes, all skill levels.
Yeah. So, I mean, transferring over to the firearm side of things, I would say it's the same. Just because you spent 3 years in the military, right? And this is not to take away from the time that you spent there. If you spent time as a combat veteran, that's what you were doing. As a combat veteran, I have highest amount of respect for you for putting your life on the line for the reasons that you did it and for representing the United States of America. But just as you may be really good at developing your own body as a bodybuilder in the gym, does not mean you're an expert at coaching people or that you can be a good coach. So it's the same thing. People coming out with, let's say, credentials. And I don't care where you're from, whether you're in a line of work that requires you to carry a firearm and that has provided you, or in order for you to get into that line of work, you had to go through some level of education, some level of training, whether that's law enforcement, military, some other government organization, some security type organization. Just because you went through that doesn't make you an instructor. And I think this is something that the consumer needs to understand. Right.
So like if I have an NRA certification, I'm not a good instructor.
And I'm not saying you're not good. I'm just saying that doesn't make you an expert, right?
Yeah.
Fucking
with you.
Yeah. So there's any level in between. And I think the instructors that are out there, and particularly the excellent ones, would tell you the exact same thing. They tell you, look, I have my post cert. I have my, whatever they are, my NRA cert. I have that because I need to maintain that minimum standard, but that's where it starts. It's not where it stops. Now, I just have that to make sure that I can get insurance, right? That I can have a legitimate business.
Yeah, that all makes sense. But I'll tell you what, on the CrossFit end, I have a CrossFit L1 Olympic weightlifting cert, Kettlebell King cert. I forget, I have one other one. I don't remember, but none of those mattered as much as coaching, like boots on the ground coaching.
I've been in this shit for 25 years. I quit paying for certifications years ago. I was like, what am I doing here? The point of that is I never learned more. I learned more in a week on the gym floor than I learned in months of certifications. Now, you have to I think you need to go through and do that work. I think you need to establish yourself as, look, I've done these things so that I can, again, call myself a professional. And it doesn't just stop there. And I don't want to go into the long list of things it needs to do, but I'm going to tell you, if you're going out to the range and you're handing the instructor cash every weekend, right? And he doesn't have a legitimate business going, that's something I'd be questioning, because if he's not operating legitimate, he or she, operating legitimately that way, probably not operating legitimately in the rest of their life. Yeah. That's just a red flag to me. But again, going back, like it's not about how many certifications you have. I do care, but it's not going to be the reason I choose you as an instructor, that you went through this particular law enforcement academy or this particular training or this particular special operations training or whatever. I would imagine that you have things to provide and you have some practical application that could be very useful. That doesn't mean you know how to deliver it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you know how to deliver it to the greater market or the greater.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to are you a coach or are you an athlete? Are you an athlete who is so good at being an athlete in any sport or CrossFit or whatever it is that you do? You like it so much that you have to pay the bills so you can continue to do it. And all you know is basketball, for example. Right. So you become a basketball coach. Are you actually a good basketball coach? Or are you an athlete who only knows this, right? A coach is somebody who understands something fully and is trying to bridge the gap between what your knowledge is and communicating it to somebody who's trying to get that, as the new popular term is, knowledge transfer. Yeah, right. Yeah. So,
yeah. And I like that term. And I thought that was defined. What you just said there was excellent. I would agree with you 100%. And you have to meet that client or that consumer where they are.
Yeah.
Right. And in order to do that, there has to be a high level of awareness from both the consumer and the instructor, right? Or the coach. And what I mean by that is, if I'm walking into, this might be more relatable from the fitness perspective. So if I'm a consumer, I'm average Joe, and I want to get in shape, right? Or whatever, I have a goal. I want to be healthier. I want to get in shape. I want to look a certain way, whatever. And I'm thinking about hiring a coach, or I'm thinking about joining a gym. There is a process that most people are pretty familiar with now. If they've been through while still only 20% of the United States population has a gym membership, and the 80% is doing God knows what, there's a large portion of that 80% that has been through the ringer somehow. Like they showed up for the gym tour, they had that initial session maybe with that personal trainer or whatever it is. They kind of get how it works. So what I'm about to say might not sound unfamiliar. And that is basically, look, you show up to the gym, somebody sits you down, they talk about your goals, right? They talk about what your wants are. They talk about what your fears are. If they're good, they're going to start to uncover things like what they'll tell you in Gym Sales School 101 is you have to figure out what their underlying motivation is. What's the hot button? What's the real reason they're there? They got the wedding and they want to look better than their sister at their wedding, or they've got the anniversary trip coming up. They don't want to look fat on the beach. They want to look good in a bathing suit, whatever else. And there's layers of all of these things. And then they give you a tour and they show you all the equipment and they introduce you all the people that are essentially going to be the people that, as they're going to tell you, are on your side to help you out and get you to that point. And then they're going to provide you the solution, and they're going to make themselves part of the solution 99% of the time. I'm going to come back to that. And then they're going to tell you how much it costs, and they're going to tell you why this is a great investment for you. And then you're going to have to make a buying decision. And that takes us down a whole other path. The point of that is that might sound really familiar with somebody, or to somebody that's looking to get into a fitness program. It's kind of been figured out. And there's a few different models that you'll see if you walk into different facilities or work with different coaches. But the best coaches, the most successful coaches, are the ones that take an immense amount of time to understand who that consumer is, who that potential client is. And it's as much about deciding or figuring out how to help this client and provide a solution for them as it is about figuring out whether or not that's the right client for that coach. And I don't mean like, do I have the skill set in order to help you with your goal? Do I want to instruct you? Right?
Yeah,
is this something that I want?
I think that's really good what you just said, all of that. Because I know that as a coach, that every time I'm working with a new individual, whether it's in a class setting or one-on-one, I always start off with, how'd you hear about us and what do you want to accomplish?
Right.
How can I help you with that? Why is it that you want to accomplish? And that's not normal in the firearms community.
No, it isn't.
And it's a problem that I've ran into at multiple companies that I've taken for instruction, where they're not spending any time to vet who's coming in to like gauge where they're at and whether it's their fitness level or actual shooting skill. And that's something that needs to be upgraded. That's something that needs to be touched on if you want to have better business practice in the 2A community as an instructor. As far as I know, I think GBRS Group is somebody who's really good about that.
They highly vet. It's very, to my understanding.
Yeah, same here.
And I don't have any personal relationships with anybody there. Just in the research that I've done and what I've listened to and read and seen, they go take it to a very deep level to make sure they're getting the right kind of client for them. Because like for me, I'm a civilian, but I'm highly interested in taking like some course from them. So I've been trying to figure out how to get that done. Right. So with that being said, like, yeah, they vet people. Like from my understanding, they get to know them on like a basic level, just like we're talking about with our background in fitness. Right. And why is that a crazy thing for the 2A community? You would think, like I said earlier, you would think that, if I'm pushing somebody in a CrossFit workout, they might puke. It might strain a muscle. If you're pushing somebody in a firearms environment, you might fuck around and shoot somebody. There's a lot of problems with that.
Yeah. Obviously. So why is it crazy to think that you can't like have a conversation with people and understand where they're at? Like if somebody flat out lies to you and you're teaching a lower level, like some sort of foundation course, like there's not a lot you can do there. It is what it is.
You mean if they exaggerate
like
they embellish
the usual, I grew up shooting guns. Right. I've owned a gun for so long. Yeah. We all know that means nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? But my point is like, sometimes it's not the instructor's fault. Sometimes it's not the company's fault. If you're running a lower level course, just some sort of like foundation thing. Right. And they just outright lie to you because they need to get in and get training. And this is their way of doing it. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they came in with a friend who's at a higher level, but they want to go with their friend because they're comfortable.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's a real thing. So just kind of relating back to the fitness side of things, coaches should be interviewing their potential clients as well as clients interviewing their potential coaches.
Yeah.
I think the challenge is again, this consumer base has grown so fast, right? Within the firearm specific community, there are a lot of newbies and they don't know what to ask. And again, there's a lot of noise. And so they don't know which direction to go. Going back to that, making that buying decision, I can tell you in the fitness industry, and this is never going to change. This is basically how it's gone when it comes to gyms or facilities. Now the consumer's getting much more savvy, and I would obviously expect that to happen in the firearm space too. But it's a much savvier consumer now. They kind of know the bullshit when they see it, or they've heard the things a million times now, and they've seen the horror stories, or they have a friend that's had a bad experience if they haven't already. But just going back, people buy things like gym memberships or lessons or classes at a particular fitness studio, whatever. First and foremost, it has to be convenient, right? So if you have a high volume of studios or gyms or whatever in your area that makes it convenient, then it kind of comes down to the next. It's already convenient for me. Like I got this one that's 10 minutes away. I got that one that's 5 minutes away, whatever. Then the next thing that comes down to is, well, does it seem like this could be a right fit for me, right? Is this do they have the right programs that provide the right variety of things to fit my goals, my potential needs? And within there's always a human component, like a connection component, like, do I like the people that I met or saw there? And some people don't care about that. They're just kind of picking up, this is convenient, right? This looks like the right thing for me. Like I want cycling, they have cycling. And then the next thing it goes to is price, right? Yeah. So if there's 4 cycling places, type studios on the thing, they're going to look at, hey, which has the schedule that fits my needs, right? It has the class that seems like it fits my needs, and how much does it cost? Because if you got 2 that are probably near the same price, you got one that's really low priced, and you got one that's, super high priced out of it, they're probably going to visit or choose one of the two middle ones. That's generally how it works. However, there's a lot of consumers that just want the deal. So without doing any research, they're just looking for what's the cheapest I can get in, whether because they're limited from an income perspective, or they just don't value, or again, the business hasn't presented the right amount of value, right, to maybe demand the price that they're asking. And they're like, well, none of that's really worth it to me, so I'm going to go here. But they're placing some type of value exchange, right, for the money that they're paying. But again, it starts with convenience, availability, right, and then price, kind of in that order. Well, the gym business, as we know, is a pretty saturated market in a lot of places. This isn't everywhere, but certainly it is here. Right? So it's easy to find a place. So then it comes down to those other things. So if you're a business owner, you better be doing a really good job at presenting value and being able to connect with that consumer, particularly if you're going to be asking for a certain rate that's much higher or above, let's just say, what typical market rate is. The challenge comes in, this is going back to what I said I was going to come back to. The challenge for the newer instructor, same as a personal trainer entering into the market, is I don't have any fucking clients, right? So what am I going to do to get clients? They end up doing things like, well, I'm going to get as many people in front of me as I can, because then I don't have to charge people so much. You know, I can charge a little less rather than one-on-one sessions or semi-private sessions or whatever. And I can really lower the price. You can basically do a fucking Groupon. Yeah. Right. And I got to tell you something. Like, I would never go to a fitness instructor or a gym that offered me that had a program. Maybe a gym's different if I'm just walking and using the equipment, but going into a programmed type of thing where they're selling a particular program on a Groupon. Because what that's telling me is you don't value yourself, because they're not making hardly any money off that Groupon. All they're doing is looking for leads, looking for clients. Yeah. So if you got a quote unquote professional coach, right, who's quote unquote offering a professional program, and they're selling it on a Groupon or at a discount, I'd start asking some questions. Why are they doing this? What is their goal?
No, I think you're 100% right. In my experience with the fitness industry is the gym that I work at, they've had people that I've worked with in terms of members that have just outright left for the Groupon direction. And I've personally felt bad, like, damn, did I really not provide enough value to, let's be honest, charge 3 to 4 times as much as the Groupon boot camps? Right. They go there and they feel good because they're getting a deal, but they have no rhyme or reason other than cardio and burning calories. And you're probably putting people more in danger than they realize with, let's be honest, dude, heavy set people shouldn't be doing a bunch of plyometrics and hurdle hops and burpees and shit like that. And
it's not appropriate.
It's burning calories, but I mean, for how long before something falls apart because your body wasn't built for this, being out of shape?
You don't have the proper foundation.
Exactly. So the Groupon thing's never going to be a good deal. It might be a good thing to kind of get you introduced. I have a lot of success with people who started off with the Groupon thing, realized I can only do this for 3 months before I get really burnt out and tired of this. Now these are lifelong clients that I have that are into Train with Purpose, which is completely separate than my gym stuff, because I built their trust when I showed them the value outside of the Groupon thing, charging 4 times the price.
Right. So the Groupon got them in the door. Yeah. Right. Now what happens? Right. And in your case, what happened was I recognized I need to take these Groupon clients as it was offered by the gym. But what can I do with this now? And if I do my job in building an extraordinarily high level of value, and I can help these people find solutions for their problems, and I give a shit, right? I'm checking in, I'm making sure they're getting the things that they need and want in order to achieve their goals. I'm not feeding them a line of BS, right? I'm telling them actually what they need. I'm not going to tell them they're doing a good job if they're not doing a good job. Right? I'm holding them accountable, but I'm also encouraging them. I'm a partner in the journey, right? That kind of thing.
All of that is accurate.
All of that stuff stacks up, right, to value, to where they're like originally this was only worth the $30 Groupon, but now it's worth $75 a session to me.
Yeah.
Right. Or, $30 for the Groupon that got you the 2 months worth of training or whatever it was, that 90 days or whatever you did.
And now it's like $150 a month.
Right. Now they're charging 5X. Now you're charging 5X and they're paying 5X because they recognize the value in that. So I'm not saying it's not a good business move to have a special offer or some type of an entry level offer to get people in. I'm saying from the consumer perspective and from the coach's perspective, what are we actually saying we're going to do? And what are we actually getting out of that? Yeah. Because here's where the problem comes in. I think you got an overinflated sense of self-confidence from the instructors, from several instructors, there's not a lot of application to the theory, or they have a lot of application in one sort of genre. Again, your law enforcement or your military, which doesn't necessarily transfer over to working with Sally Jones, the 40-something housewife or professional that is just looking to feel a little bit more confident around handguns because she's trying to make a decision on maybe what handgun to buy. Is this a good idea for her? And effectively, what you're asking is somebody that is trained to be say the combat side of things, is trained to be a killer, right? Effectively, to teach somebody how to just feel good around being around their gun and maybe be proficient with it. There's a big disconnect right there, right? And it takes time in order to build that kind of knowledge and build that kind of skill in order to do that. And then there's the business side, right? Which is a whole other side of this. So you went back to are you being coached or taught, or are you being tested?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the things that we see out there that I'm seeing that bother me is it looks like everybody's trying to run some kind of a contest. It's all competition.
Yeah.
And I think there can be value in competition when it's done appropriately.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about that. At my movement efficiency course, I did a challenge at the end for a gift card for my store. Everything leading into that last challenge, though, was step by step. Forward movement, lateral movement, walking and shooting, running and shooting, standing, kneeling, prone, changing levels, barricades, whatever, right? Everything is one step at a time. And at the very end, so that everybody feels like they got that stimulus, that pressure, that peer pressure, that under time pressure, and then a little bit of physical fatigue after they've been introduced to every single aspect, every single small step to that challenge pieced together everything that we covered in the course, the one challenge at the very end, right? And so they got instructed for 95% of the course. And the last 5%, Andrew, the guy that won, felt great, told me the other day, working out with him, that dude, he loves the base plates and all this kind of stuff. And then he went and retested that same challenge on his own training.
So he's testing himself now.
So now he's testing himself. And to me, I feel like that whole thing was a success. But what we're seeing isn't the step-by-step process and then everything coming together at the end with one challenge. What we're seeing is people throwing kettlebells in the mix at the range for what? People having, I've done this. I've gone to courses where a couple times where we're doing suicides, 18
shuttle runs,
18 people, shuttle runs. Dude, I have video of everything I do. So if anybody wants to check me, I got the video. I felt great. The only one though, there's people with their pants falling down, people that didn't realize running with the belt more than once or twice, that their war belt's coming off. People that were flagging people at the course I went to because doing shuttle runs, and this was just lateral. This wasn't even forward and back. This was lateral. They're falling apart, people wheezing. Okay, what's the stimulus? What's the point of that? You got them to realize they're out of shape, but you could have did that for a lot less without a firearm being pointed at everybody in the group. Right. So I think there's a lot of pieces to this whole thing that can be kind of broken down to what you as an instructor, are you an instructor or is this the fucking test? And then are you selling people that you're teaching them how to get to this point? Or are you selling them that, hey, we're all coming out together. You're about to get tested. Good day at the range. Let's see where you match up with everybody else, where you stand. Yeah,
I think there's a couple things here. You've got the consumer end again, and then the instructor end or coach's end. And the coaches have pressure. And that is I'm trying to start a business or I'm trying to do this. I'm also trying to be an authority, and they're trying to back up the ego that they may have brought to it. There's a lot of stuff going, potentially going into that. And there's also this pressure to maybe make some money at the same time because they're the time that they're dedicating to it, or, they also see that there is potential to do that, and they start making compromises. Or they start, and some of those compromises would be similar. If I'm again, relating to the fitness side of things, if you're looking to hire a fitness coach, the compromises are they start doing things like thinking that they have to teach you something new every time you come out, right? And there has to be something sizzly or sexy. That's how I'm going to get you coming back, right? And the only way for me to get you coming back is kind of going by this test being taught thing, is that I have to keep showing you all the things that you don't know. Otherwise, you're going to leave, or you might go to another instructor, right? Yeah. So I have to keep throwing this sizzly kind of, and at the same time, like showing you that I can do it, right? Yeah. And again, going back to the ego piece, like I can do this, you should be able to do this, or I want you to aspire to be like me, which is highly fucking inappropriate as far as I'm concerned. If that person wants to be there, that's fine. That's up to them, but it shouldn't be you putting that on them. It's the same, again, as a fitness coach saying, well, I can do this. Why can't you? Like, look what I do. This is what I do with my diet. How come you can't do it? This is what I do with my exercise program. How can you, how anybody can do it if I can do it? That isn't necessarily true. It's not applicable, but they start running into this. All right, well, I have to give them this sizzly stuff. I have to make it so much better than this other instructor's course, right? In order to stay competitive. So I want to break that down one level further and look at when you start to look at it that way, what ends up happening is there's a lot of compromise that happens, and you start to not do the things that a coach is supposed to do. And when I look at working with clients in fitness, in business, in relationships, this has just been my experience in my time. I fucked up a lot, man. Initially, when I started as a coach, I was that douche. I was the guy that was trying to beat people up, make them puke, make them so sore, that, they come back the next day and like, oh, you sore today? Yeah, I'm so sorry. I can't. Perfect. That's a great workout then. See, you're making progress, which is totally ridiculous. I mean, after my first year of coaching, like I started to realize like, oh my God, I should have to go back to all of those people I trained my first 6 months of training and apologize to them for being that guy. Right. And then the second year came around, I got a little sharper, started to understand the clientele, started to understand how to assess and evaluate a little bit more, get a better baseline. And then, as I started to move on in my career, I got to that point where you finally realize, you finally discover what you don't know. Now you finally know what you didn't know. There's like this conscious incompetence, like, okay, I need to get better at these things. So I'm going to circle it back to what should be happening in coaching and what a client should be focused on, or a consumer should be focused on when looking to improve something. And again, this works in business, it works in firearms, it works in fitness, works in relationships, whatever. And it starts with basically skill acquisition. You have to understand what the skills are that you need to acquire, but there's some basic skill acquisition, and that takes time. That is not going to happen in one session. Yeah. It's not going to happen with one session plus some dry fire. It's not going to happen in one session, 3 sessions, this person that buys the 4-pack of training sessions because it's the special or the 5-pack. Look, what you're going to get is a really good introduction to what you don't know and the skills that you need to learn. That's what those sessions are really about, like learning what you don't know. And what I mean by that is learning that these are the things you're going to need to work on. So once I've started kind of to build these skills, then I get to work on those skills. And again, so I built this foundation or these fundamentals of like, oh, I need to know how to squat. but I don't have a lot of skill yet, right? Yeah. I need to know how to handle my firearm. I need to know how to draw from the holster. I need to know whatever it happens to be. There's all kinds of fundamental things you need to know. And then there's the skills that go along with making those fundamentals better. So it starts even before skill acquisition. You have to understand what the fundamentals are. You have to have a base. Then you move into skill acquisition. And then once you do that for some time and you have a high level of proficiency, you're still trying to build proficiency, again, in your business skill or whatever else, then it turns into mastery, right? Then I'm trying to work on the mastery of those skills. And that's when you're taking it to the next level. And that would be maybe equivalent for kind of in the broad sense, like going from a white belt to a brown belt, right, to ultimately being a black belt. I mean, it takes 10 years for this to happen in, say, jiu-jitsu, if we're using that as an example. Over that time, I'm building and building and building and building, and the mastery finally starts as you get later on down the road. And when you earn that black belt, you're basically being basically presented with, well, you have learned, you have finally attained the level of master at this. But that's the best part about any black belt you talk to. They'll never stop. They just keep trying to get better and better and better. The problem I see is people are trying to be black belts, like on their first month or two of firearms training, or their first month or two of fitness training. And that's creating a problem, because I think what instructors are trying to do are get people there, because they think that's what they have to do in order to keep them hooked and keep coming back. And that's what we're seeing on social, and that's what we're seeing and hearing from people out there. And it's a problem. It's a problem.
Yeah, and I think as a coach or a business owner, I think that if you just approached them kind of like what we're talking about with the fitness thing, we're like, hey, we're doing this together, and I want to work on whatever you need to work on to get better, instead of like coming up with some crazy test for people, or like having your own end goal to feel good about what you're selling them. Like actually just being like, okay, how can we help you get to where you want to be, instead of me, it's what do you need? Mm-hmm. Right. I've had the most success with people by going through like coaching, doing that. Like everybody I feel really good about coaching CrossFit. Okay. So my point of me saying that is like, that's exactly my approach with everybody. And I've had like really good success rate with that, by treating everybody as an individual, everybody at a different spot, and taking that journey with them. So much so that I have like, members that are now friends, or that talk to me outside of CrossFit, because we've developed that relationship, which was there so that I can help them get somewhere. Right. But actually now I was so good at that now it's past that. And my point in saying all that is that like, you have to have well thought out curriculum, but you also have to treat people like an individual. And I don't think any of that shit is happening in the 2A community right now. It doesn't seem like it. Like I said, I've taken a good amount of courses now from some of the largest names. And like I referenced earlier with the shuttle runs and things like that, where you run through 2 to 3 full mags, depending on what size mags you run.
So you're out there a while. Basically what you're saying is this is a long duration of time
people
under stress.
Anaerobic for, looks like 2 to 3 minutes of nonstop, lateral direction change, short sprint, stop, short sprint, stop. And I had a great time doing it. But like I said, out of 18 people, the only one who had a great time, and probably one of the only people who didn't flag somebody. And my point is, was that a test? Were you trying to give me an experience? Which is what I see often in the firearms world, is like they teach you a little bit and then they'll be like, okay, well, I want to give you an experience so that you come back. But are they paying for the experience? Or are they paying for the coaching? Because some people do want the experience, but I think you can do that tastefully and also in an informative way without just giving them the party, but actually making them better.
And you have to understand what the limitations of you are as a coach, and the environment that you're in, as well as the consumer. It's just, again, just keep bringing it back to fitness. Like everybody's been in a group training situation. Not everybody, blanket statement, but people have been in a group training situation, right? And they've walked in and like they're getting the experience. And I'll give you an example. There's plenty of these examples, but it's the studio that has the the lights, the flashing lights, the disco ball, the loud music, the instructor with the headset on that has to yell through the microphone. They're dancing around up in front. It's very high energy. It's moving at all kinds of different directions or whatever. And there's an experience there, and that's why people go, because it's like basically a party.
Yeah.
It's like going to a nightclub.
You're enjoying the process.
Right. Yeah. You're
cycling places are really popular for that reason.
So you got this cycling class or this treadmill class, whatever else. It seems like a party. It's like a party on a bike. I mean, that's literally the slogan of one of these places, and that's fine. And I think, again, there's a low level of probably injury risk and things like that, but there is really no structure to that workout or progressiveness to that workout. You're basically coming in, you're getting sweaty, you're sweating with the person next to you, And if that's what you're looking to get, that's fine. Like, then go. I'm not bashing it that way. But if you're using that as a basis for a progressive fitness program, or in the case that we're talking about, this experience that you're getting out on the range with this particular instructor, that is not a good way to build that foundation, right? For that skill acquisition. And then again, the skill mastery. And to go back to your point about the shuttle runs or the suicides, and you doing great and having fun and then not making the mistakes that you're seeing other people, that's because the people don't have the foundations or haven't gotten the skill acquisition to be able to do the things, and they piled on more than they can handle, whether you don't have the foundational fitness level to do that. You don't have the skill level in order to move laterally. Maybe you are fit, but you don't have the ability to move because you don't train that.
And I tell you what, like I said, this was a large brand that ran this course. And from what I've collected about these courses, because I've been to a good amount of courses, what I've collected is that they have curriculum, and then they kind of let each instructor free ball the last challenge area of maybe the last 25% of the course. Like, okay, so we got through this. And so now it's up to you, depending on what range you're at, to put together these movements so it comes together for them. Me in my head, I have no idea how 2 minutes of shuttle runs, made me better after doing some movement forward, back, not a lot of movement, a good amount of walking and shooting, but then going into shuttle runs, you know what I mean? And then like not having a true round count, not having a timer. So there was no like measurement here of skill or performance. I clearly fucked everybody up on that one, and it didn't really matter. There was no challenge. There's no winner. And like I said, there was one guy who was ex-military, and this guy like looked like he was about to pass out, and the instructor had to actually go up and like walk next to him while he was finishing, and we're all cheering him on. But it's also
he's like pushing himself beyond where he probably should be pushing him, is what I get from that.
In a shuttle run, walking. Yeah. So it's
clearly beyond that guy's skill and or foundational level.
So what that tells me is the preparation for that course which includes the curriculum, wasn't well thought out. And B, the person instructing it is actually just a shooting coach and has no idea how to piece together skills, whether it's physically, like your physicality, and fitness, your movement patterns combined with shooting. That tells me that they just know generally how to teach you how to shoot, and then they put together all that shit. And I honestly was disappointed because I spent $400 something on that course, and I knew I was above it going into it, but I didn't think I was going to get disappointed like that.
Yeah, there's a disconnect, right? And maybe that's how they learn it, and the instructor can do it.
Yeah.
And they remember doing it, and their buddies that they go out and shoot with on the weekends can do it, but they're not tailoring it to the general consumer, or at least who they've allowed into their class or their workshop.
Yeah, with me, they're all cool with me. There's a couple instructors at this course, and they all talk to me and shoot the shit with me. And man, you did great, but stop looking at me. Stop talking to me. Help the guys out that are actually like their pants are falling down doing these shuttle runs. Their belts were clearly, until today, not set up for movement.
Got you.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're shooting AR-15s with fucking lights, 2 lights, lasers, optics.
That's a whole other issue. Like if you're an instructor and you see that walk into your session, into your workshop, that's a red flag, and that should be addressed. Like, I mean,
this is what I mean by individualizing things and like treating every customer like they're an individual, even though we're taking this class together. Everybody's an individual.
Well, I've yet to go to a class where, kind of everybody comes in, right? And they start to show up, and it's generally just like being in a fitness class for the first time. Nobody knows one another. Everybody's kind of trying to find out, where do I put my bag? Where do I, which bike should I take? Or where's my spot on the floor? Or in this case, it's like, where do I put my stuff? Where do I gear up? Where do I start topping off my mags? Nobody's really saying much. There's always a couple people, and I'm usually one of those guys introducing myself to people, and there's always a couple people there that already know the instructor, and they're like monopolizing the instructor's time, or more specifically, the instructor is allowing them to monopolize their time. Red flag. instead of getting to know the people that are coming into their session that they don't know.
Yeah.
They should be, if they already know those people, then those people that are trying to monopolize their time should respect the fact that they're going around trying to because they should have been that person at one point.
And my way about going about that especially with CrossFit classes is I'll leave that person alone for a bit and I'll watch from an angle that they can't see me. So they're not affected by me watching and observing. And after I start to like really get a handle on where they are, I come up and I make sure like, oh, hey, just want to make sure everything's good. I noticed this, you know what I mean? And if that never happens, then you're not instructing, you're not coaching.
Yeah. You're just giving, the coaching piece being able to provide very specific feedback to somebody on something that they're doing well or not doing well to help them improve with only the intention of helping them to improve or keep themselves from getting hurt, right? I kind of look at instructing, we're splitting hairs here, but I kind of look at instructors, you're just giving directions, right? You're just saying like, here's the drill, go do the drill, right? Versus explaining it, demoing it, which also is still instruction until it comes down. Coaching comes in where you're again able to assess somebody and evaluate.
So that's something that I think that the firearms world has made like a slogan, but for some reason we still don't see. When I took the triple feed low light course, dude, they would explain everything as a group. Let's all come in, talk about this. That's pretty standard with all courses. But then they'd say, Jerry's going to do this. And then eyes and ears, Jerry does it. Is there any questions about this? Okay, everybody to the line. Literally the entire time. Now, given that was like a 6.5 hour, 7 hour course, nonstop instruction, nonstop demos. If you're running a course where you have the time, you have 5, 6, 7 hours, because some courses don't like that. Some courses think, past 4 or 5 hours is going to be mental, physical fatigue. So
I would agree with that. To some extent, it depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. So I was fatigued after the triple feed course, but it was so not physical outside of just kneeling.
Yeah.
Everything else was so not physical that like I was willing to stick around and learn and just absorb because there's so much information from them and they were really good about breaking that down. My point in saying all this is that they demoed everything and gave you rationale every time. Mm-hmm. And I told them straight up right after, like, dude, this is one of the best courses I've ever taken.
Because of that.
Yeah. There was never any question for me. And if I even had the slightest question instantly, there was an answer. There was somebody like, oh, let me show you why. Now the triple feed's 3 people, but my point is, well,
that's a good point that you're making, right? So if you're putting 25 people into a session, right? Because you've got a bay big enough to put somebody in there, or again, a room in a gym big enough to put 25. Is that a good thing? Is that what's in the best interests of the consumer that I would imagine you're trying to hold on to, like for the next time? Like, if I only do one thing and I only expect to see these people one time and I'm just going to do this knowledge transfer, as we said before, or whatever, and I don't care. Okay, we'll do whatever you want, I guess. But if you're trying to build a business and you're trying to really provide value, both for the short and for the long term, I don't know if putting 25 people in a bay is a good thing. If you're all by yourself. So what is your ratio? And as a consumer, I would be asking this: how many people are in the class? How many instructors are there? Is it just you? Do you actually coach the class or the workshop, or does somebody else coach it? And if so, who are these people, right? How do you vet your instructors? If I'm a solid business owner, I love that question. Oh, so you're a savvy consumer who wants to know. Guess what? I have all of those answers for you because I've vetted every single one of my coaches. I know what their qualifications are. I know what they love doing. I know what they hate doing. I know who they're good with working with, who they might not be good with working with. And I'm going to be totally transparent about it. And I'm going to put everybody in a situation to win. So if this person's coming into the session and they need maybe a specific type of touch, and I'm just going to say like, maybe they need a certain type of coach, like they like being yelled at, like they like being, they like being messed with. Like they perform better. I'm this guy. I perform better when somebody's in my ear, like kind of like razzing me a little bit or joking with me a little bit.
One of my best friends is like that.
Right. So that there's other clients or other consumers or other people that might be showing up for this workshop that are not like that at all. They're very sensitive. They're very intimidated, whatever it is. And none of those things are bad things. It's just who they are. Right. Mm-hmm. some instructors might not be good for that client, right?
Yeah.
That's in that situation. So if you have a group of instructors, how are you dividing those people up? And if you're a consumer, like you're not sure, right? You should be able to go to the instructor and go, hey, I'm not sure about this. Can you help me? And like what you're saying is like they answered that question. But if you're walking into a group of instructors with like a lead instructor, I would expect or want the instructor to be like, hey, I'm not saying you have to deal with snowflakes. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is so that everybody gets the best experience possible. And I mean that from the people that are very highly skilled that may also be or have a lot more skill than somebody that's in the class, somebody else that's in the class, or a group of people that are in the class. It works both ways. Because if I'm spending all my time with you, this group, with group A, the skilled people, that means the unskilled people aren't getting the attention they deserve, right? Or need, more specifically, and deserve, and vice versa. If I'm over here because these people are having a lot of trouble with some of the basic fundamentals, that means the people that were there to maybe work more towards skill mastery or skill acquisition are not getting what they need from the class. And that's not good for anybody. It's not good for you. It's not good for your business as an instructor. And it's not good for those clients. It's the same walking into a fitness facility or whatever. And you can see it right away when you walk out there. Like if you're savvy at all, you can see it right away when you walk into a fitness situation or you walk into a firearms training situation. You're like, oh shit, this is a clusterfuck. This is look at that. I'm going to add this as an instructor. What I see happening all the time, what I see being advertised the most, and I get it, it's the same in fitness. It's group instruction, right? And you rent out the bay, costs you money, right? And so you got to put butts in the seats, right? It's just like having if you have a 5,000 square foot gym, well, you're looking at how many dollars of revenue do I make per square foot in this place, which means I need to fill it up with people. Yeah. Right. So I get it. They're going to these group sessions, and there can be a lot of value in the group sessions. But at the same time, if you can't coach somebody one-on-one, you'll never be able to coach a group effectively. Yeah. Specifically, I'm going to use that word effectively. If you can't work with somebody one-on-one, there's no way you're going to be effective in a group. I would say the group situation is even harder than the one-on-one situation. What gets lost, or where you can get by in the group situation, is not having the soft skills, not having the good coaching skills, because you don't have to if you're not being held accountable to it. You can kind of just sit back, and there's 25 people there, and I'm giving an instruction. Some people are good, some people are bad. What's being measured here? Well, if there's say 24 people and 13 of them are doing good, well, then I'm fine. I'm winning as a coach. I'm doing an okay job. These people, they're just not as good as the majority, right? If you're looking at it that way, versus being in like a one-on-one situation. If I'm paying for one-on-one coaching, I would expect that I'm going to start seeing some. So if I'm coming and upholding my end of the bargain and I'm doing the things I'm supposed to do, I would expect that my questions are being answered, that I'm seeing that those fundamentals start to get layered on and stacked, and then working into the skill acquisition, I should be getting better. And if you're doing a good job as a coach and I'm doing as good job as a client, then we're going to see these things progress. And I'm going to continue, like you said, move from the Groupon to the 5X, session rate. Yeah. And I don't want to, I guess, belabor this thing. I'm just saying there seems to be a major disconnect between how to provide value to the audience that you have, or the audience that's in front of you. And part of that is understanding, obviously, that audience. There has to be a high level of awareness. What are you doing as an instructor to create that? What is your onboarding process into this? And once that happens, do you have the ability to adjust if your audience shifts or your audience changes? Like, you have a course that's planned for the day, right? And you're supposed to be teaching these things, and you very quickly realize these people are more advanced than this. I've got a really good group of shooters. And even when you default to your lowest common denominator within the group, you recognize you could dial this thing up a bit. Do you have that skill? The more important skill is to be able to go the other way, to recognize I have this whole course planned out, and I'm recognizing this is way beyond where this, at least the majority of the people are in here. I have to adjust in a way that provides value for everybody and for those consumers. And I think those are the skills that I see lacking, or that I've experienced in kind of going to courses or doing things. Certainly in the fitness business, I've been doing it a long time. I've seen that. I mean, I experience it here. It's one of, even at Red Dot, like we have to, we have coaches that are inside their 3-year process, right? Of getting better. It's our job to make sure we're guiding and coaching them. But when you're out there on your own, and there really is no accountability, right? As an instructor at a bay with a bunch of people, and at the end of it, everybody high fives, goes home, and you don't see them as frequently. I mean,
dude, it's hard. I know that with now, like, what do we have at the pistol movement efficiency? I think we had 16 people.
Yeah, it was a packed class. Yeah.
I think it was 16 people, right? So,
I think you're right.
My classes with CrossFit are generally anywhere between 10 and 25. They fluctuate depending on day and time, right?
Again, convenience, availability.
Yeah. So if I have 20 people in each class, let's say, just to round out here.
Yeah.
In a CrossFit class, I can have somebody who's like, oh, hey, this is my first class. Okay, cool. I give them a little extra attention. The rest of the class is, I make sure that nobody's doing anything dumb. If I can help quickly with somebody and make an adjustment, then I do it. But I know that my attention has to be with the person who clearly needs to catch up. But if it doesn't go well that day, not in terms of injury, but in terms of growth, I usually give them some sort of homework, very light homework. And I tell them, hey, don't worry. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you the next day after that or whatever. We're going to get through this. Firearms training is different. Everybody who went to my pistol movement efficiency course, for the most part, I think I only got positive feedback from what I can gather from that. And a lot of people took a lot of that home and worked on it, which is great. But I'm lucky, I would say, because it makes me feel bad. I want to message these people and be like, hey, is everything good? I followed up with one of them that was there today, and he clearly is better. Right. My point is that you see these people, let's say you do, for me, I'm not going to instruct more than once a month. I just won't. It's not my main gig for firearms training. Right. So for me, if I only get to see people once a month, if that's the case, I'm like a nervous wreck, and I'm going to be in communication with them between this day into the next month, because I need to make sure that A, they're doing their homework, getting their value, and B, they're actually progressing. That's the reason why I do firearms training. It's not because training the purpose is totally fine without the firearms training. I do it because I want to see the progression in people. I enjoy that as a coach. And so my point is it's harder. The task is harder as a firearms coach, because you get to see CrossFit classes or whatever classes 3 days a week at least.
There's much more frequency, right? Much more frequency where you get to connect with people.
Yeah. So I understand the stress level that comes with seeing people at best once a month.
But I think that's a good point of what you're saying there is what are you providing to the consumer beyond the workshop or the class, right? And so how can you provide value to keep them on track, to keep them coming back, so you are seeing a building there versus the one and done scenario?
Yeah.
Because if you're not providing value beyond that, and there's many different ways to do that, and I'm not even going to begin to get out into all of them, but are you providing them, is there regular content you're providing them? Is there a private group that you have, whether it's through some social platform, or is there an email type of thing that you do? Are there online courses that you've provided for them? Do you provide once a month check-in calls, look, there's a million ways to do this, but are you providing that so that they are feeling like they are connected? And again, taking the foundational stuff that you give them, or the skills that you're now helping them to acquire and develop a little bit more of, to continue to progress. This is only good for everybody, right? Because then when you have the next class, right, or your next workshop, and those people have progressed, and you get a couple of newbies in there, the people that have been working with you, have been extracting all this value from you and have been improving, are going to be perfectly fine with you spending a little bit more time with that newbie that's in the class, because they were that person once too. Right. And then what you don't have is this constant cycling in and cycling out of new people and randoms and whatever else, to where
you can see true growth.
There's no continuity, right? There's no continuity in the group. So what are you measuring? From, I haven't seen you in 6 months. I mean, that's a nutrition coach that's like giving somebody some type of a caloric prescription after maybe some level of assessment, and that doesn't follow up with them, or they don't talk to their client
it makes
for
no
3
sense.
months.
And this is where the 2A world can benefit from like some of the business models with the fitness world.
1,000%.
Right.
So I think that's really where it's very immature. It's a very immature place right now. And that's not to say that everybody's, that there aren't amazing instructors out there. But you're going to need I guess what I'm saying is, from a consumer perspective, there needs to be a higher level of awareness of what you should be looking for. And if you kind of relate it to maybe a fitness experience you may have had, or even with some other type of professional where, you weren't happy with the service you were being provided, I don't know, from an attorney, a doctor, or whatever it happens to be in life, you moved on to the next person. What did you learn in that experience, and what can you take with you with regard to your level of awareness, so that you can reevaluate and make sure you don't get yourself into the same situation the next time? And again, we're in the very, very beginning stages of this, is what I'm seeing. It's kind of in its infancy. Like, it used to be a bunch of old dudes running around, one shot every 3 seconds. You go out,
leather only.
Yeah, you spend 8 hours with 8 hours on the range, and you shoot 25 rounds, kind of thing. That is not what we're seeing anymore. People are going out there, we're going to run the high speed shit, right? Yeah. They want to be moving around fast and doing all kinds of cool stuff. And damn it, I'm a coach. Like, it gets mundane teaching people, the same stuff. Shit. But the bottom line is that's what they need. So I get that you want to kind of step it up. You want to make it more exciting, and you look good when you're doing it, and people look up to you when they see you doing it. But is that appropriate for the consumer? Is that appropriate for your business? And are you doing right by your client, or your student, for both the short and the long term? And the only way you're going to know that is if you get to know those people, you get to know what their needs are, what their wants are. And again, there's a solid level of
it comes down to getting to know people. I'm not fake at all. I'm completely transparent about everything, but I do give a shit about anybody that I work with, coaching, fitness, or instruction. So I follow up. I want them to get the best product or result. I'm not just selling myself. I actually that's what I want. Like I said, the instruction and coaching part of my life makes me the least amount of money right now. That's not what I'm doing here. Right. I'm just telling you from my experience. Like I love that I have like a 60-year-old lady that lets me know when it's our anniversary, the day of our first session.
That's great.
You know what I mean?
They're the best.
This day was the day you changed my life.
That's bigger than any paycheck.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And so my point is, like, I try to bleed that over to the firearm stuff. That's why half the people that went to my pistol movement efficiency work out with us now at Red Dot.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because you want more than just that cash then and there.
Well, they've earned your trust.
Yeah.
Right. And you respecting that trust.
Yeah.
And you're providing value in return. And that's all I would hope that instructors and consumers want from one another, is to have that relationship. And so again, it's having that connection, knowing who your people are. And you said a very important thing right there, which is you're following up, which ultimately means you're getting feedback. You're right. You're getting feedback about what it is, the value that they are or aren't extracting. Or are they picking up the things that you're teaching them? Right. What are you? So here's what this is an old saying, like, if you can measure it, you can manage it. So if you can see progress, right? And there are things that we see people doing out there with sort of challenges and standards, and, that they do on their own. There's a few people out there that do kind of these things, and they become very popular, and they're kind of fun to watch and so forth. And there is a certain level of measurement that you can do there. Am I improving or am I not improving? And then from there you can manage it. Well, okay, I didn't improve here. I'm not doing so well here. What are the little things I need to work on? Again, skills, fundamentals. What is it? And tactics. There's all the things that go into these things, to the improvement portion. But as an instructor, you're looking for feedback, and it has to be more than what you hear just at the end of a course, because people they're drinking from a fire hose most of the time, right? As trying to acquire these things. It's the same for again, on the fitness floor, they're being stressed out, right? I mean, they're sweating, they're breathing heavy, they're hearing you, but are they listening to you? Right?
Oh, dude, like, I don't know how many times I've been in the middle of a CrossFit workout where, like, I know what the fuck I'm doing. somebody I like and respect can walk up to me and try to tell me something, I'd be like, dude, get the fuck away from me.
I can't hear you right now.
I can't hear you.
I'm not trying to hear this.
Yeah,
right?
like where you feel like fucking Ricky Bobby on the NASCAR track.
My point is we're drinking from a fire hose, during this time. So now they have to take, for me, I'm a processor. Like I walk away, I marinate, I download, I decompress, and I really walk through and kind of peel back and lay out all the pieces and go, what did I take away? So when somebody asks me for feedback right away, I'm actually pretty hesitant to give it. I will give like my immediate feedback, and I preface it to that. Well, my immediate feedback would be this: I really like this, or there was this one portion that I really struggled with. But in terms of my sort of critical thinking, specific, that's more of like an emotional feel kind of thing. Like I really like the way you did that. That made a real impact on me. I know that at this point. But I always say, look, I always step away. I always try to evaluate, kind of all the pieces so that I can provide some meaningful feedback. That's how I do it. And whether people are conscious to that or not, after a 6-hour course or whatever and asking for feedback, and everybody at the end, especially after running some type of a challenge where everybody has some fun, or we're slapping high fives, we're cheering people on, somebody's winning prizes or whatever else. Yeah. Asking for feedback at that time might not be the best time. Yeah. Right. I mean, asking what they learned, where they're still breathing heavy from the drill and still high on the adrenaline from the, the almost win or the close loss or whatever it happens to be, is probably not a really great time to get it. And I'm not saying you can't get valuable feedback then, and it's totally inappropriate. I'm just saying, let's be real about the feedback that you're getting at that point, and what can you do to obtain more later. I like getting feedback right when everything's done, and then asking them to follow up with me if they think of anything else. Yeah. There has to be tools to do that, right? Yeah. There has to be a pathway to do that. And whether that's you making a personal phone call, which may or may not be realistic for people, or some kind of a survey. I think those things, I'm not a big fan of those. We actually do that here with our employees. Like when we go through it, we do regular reviews with our employees here with our coaches. And when we do these reviews, these would be like their annual or biannual review, depending on where they fall in the process and how long they've been with us as an employee or whatever. There's 3 components to it. There is an evaluation done by, say, senior management, right? And it's all lined out. It's based on job description, performance, things like that. There are some key metrics or measurables that we take a look at. Nothing that the person is unprepared for. They already know what these things are, right? There's a self-evaluation that's done by the employee. So they get to kind of put down their own thoughts before they see kind of where we're coming from a management perspective. And we send out several self-addressed stamped envelopes with surveys in them to a random selection of clients, right? That allows them to provide feedback. So we get feedback from all these different areas, right? And the sort of the anonymous feedback we get, we hope puts people in a little bit better position to, maybe not feel like it's so personal, like they're not being put on the spot in front of the person, in front of the coach, and not to get somebody in trouble or whatever. And I have to be honest, like the feedback that we usually get from the coach and senior management is very transparent and very upfront, because we have good relationships. We know our people. So like if they know they suck, right, at something, they're going to say, man, I really suck at this. And we don't tell them they suck. They know they need to be doing that better. It's nothing we didn't already know. It's just more, what are we doing to make it better? And same from the other side, from the management side, or the leadership side. But from the client, it's almost always invariably positive, right? If we got 5 surveys of 10 that we sent out, or evaluations we get back, like if we got 5 back, there might be one in there that's like, so-and-so's been late a couple times, or, whatever. But my point of this is there's an evaluation system that happens. It's been put together as a means to get better, right? Right? As a means to have a platform to get better, but none so beneficial as the one-on-one feedback you get from somebody when you actually have a real life conversation with them. Not through fucking text message, not through email, right? Not through social media and DMs, through literally picking up the phone and calling somebody. That's really, or having when you're passing by them, in our case, the gym, which isn't necessarily a thing that can happen with firearms instructors because you're not going to pass them on the range. But reaching out to them to find out how they could be better, I think would pay massive dividends to a lot of these instructors that I realize they're not in it because they're trying to rip people off. It's the same as the fitness business. Genuinely, they think what they're doing is good, right?
Yeah.
And they want to do well and they want to help people. So I'm not saying people are out there ripping people off. That's not my point. My point is if that's what you really want to do, let's step up the game a little bit. Let's raise the bar. Let's raise the standard, and let's hold ourselves a little bit more accountable.
Yeah, I mean,
to being great business people and great coaches and great instructors.
That's it, exactly.
For the community.
That's all it is like, if you want to be in business, if you want to be an instructor / coach or whatever you want to call it, hold yourself to a standard. Be the best that you can be, not to sound corny. Be the best that you can be. Show up, like really give true effort, and think of this like a business. Don't think of this like, this is what I like to do and I'm just showing up. Like,
there's one last part to this too, and this could even be a conversation for a different time, and I believe we may have had it, and that is get peer reviewed. The community needs to do a better job at holding one another accountable, and I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah. Go
to the instructor's training course across town. Find out what he's doing. Collaborate. Like, stop playing everything so tight to the chest. If we're all out, the pie is big enough for everybody to have a piece.
Trust me.
Right? So, invite somebody to come to your course. Hey, man, I'm having this course. I've got these people. Hey, I would love it if you came over. Maybe we could talk shop a little bit, but you could, I love what you're doing over there at your company. I've heard only great things. Maybe you come over and give me some feedback. We can, trade some knowledge, trade some information. I'd love to have you come over. I think if people did a little bit more of that, like how could you improve as an instructor with that? We do that all the time here as coaches. We invite other training companies. We invite other coaches from around the area to come in. And you know what? We have a lot of people asking us because they heard that we had other people in here. Hey, can I come over and hang out with you guys for one of your staff development? No fucking problem. None of this is secret. It's not like this is,
again, going back to innovation and growth as a community, right?
Community.
So like nobody should be hiding things. Like I know that there's like some talk about like, this is my own curriculum, so I don't want to give it away to a bunch of people. But then also like you could be providing the absolute best product if everybody's constantly coming out with better stuff. And it kind of goes back to us talking about like gear with SHOT Show, like prices being better because of certain things. Right?
Let's make one another better.
Yeah, exactly.
And that pressure, what that pressure ends up doing is it weeds out the garbage. It weeds out the shit, right? Yeah. The cream always rises to the top. And yeah, there are people out there that are being paid the top level pricing that aren't the cream.
Yeah.
But the longevity of that generally isn't very long.
There's probably like celebrity status. I mean, I want to say, I know I say this often, but
there's definitely that, man.
I remember
that's always going to be the case. It's like that in any space.
I'm pretty sure I tried to do a Haley strategic class and it was like 3 times the price of what your average class charges.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, but I was willing to do it. I actually was going to pay. I think they just had a better vetting system to where the one coming up, I didn't have enough time to like get vetted to do the course. But the point is I was willing to pay it because I wanted to like see if there was something I can get better at from somebody I highly respect. But again, you're paying for almost the celebrity, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I know you decide that as the consumer. Was it worth the price?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Ultimately they're going to let you know if they think it's worth it or not, one way or another. So. Yeah.
It's interesting. That consumers are so good about cell phone reviews and like gear reviews just for life, right? Like what's the best camera? I learned a bunch of shit about cameras by YouTube reviews, right? But none of that happens for firearms training. And firearms training is few and far between. Like there's only so many of us and they happen like once a month or 1 week in a month. It's crazy to me that people aren't making reviews about like, oh, I went to this course and this is what I experienced. And it kind of goes back to us talking about people being scared to give real opinion because they don't want to be shunned from the community.
That's it. There's a lot of that. We're worried about our feelings.
Yeah.
Put that shit aside. At the end of the day, if what we want to do is get better, then, be respectful, be compassionate when you're providing the feedback, be constructive, right? And make it a productive conversation. But if you're coming into it already with your walls up or with being very reactionary to it, that's not going to make for a good environment. At the end of the day, like, it's really just about developing. There's so much potential, right, to be better. And if we could be better, maybe we could start to slow down this conversation or quiet this conversation that's continually happening about basically the firearms being evil and the firearms industry being a pariah. We're our own worst enemies sometimes, and a lot of times. And I think stepping it up, being a better business owner, being a better coach means being a better business owner at the end of the day. And this is all things that the top level businesses in the world, no matter what, what it is, what widget they're selling or what services they're providing, they do these types of things, and that's what's made them better. And sometimes it comes with a little discomfort and a little realization. And yes, it takes investment. It takes time and finance sometimes to do that. But if what you really want to do is do this, and it's not just a hobby, right? It's your business. And at the end of the day, this is a serious business. Yeah. This is not like arts and crafts. This is not like Pinterest, right? Like, how do you make this basket for Halloween, and I'm doing a YouTube video and shit on that. This is some serious stuff, right? And it has ramifications, and just ask both the consumer and our community as a whole, step it up a little bit. Let's just step it up.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. With that being said, how do you feel about some of the stress-induced training that I was talking to you about previously?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think this speaks to what we're talking about, and that being, I see too much complexity being added into these seminars or workshops or whatever they are for the crowd that they're teaching. And this speaks to the stress piece. Is when you're developing, I'm just going to talk from a human performance perspective. When you're talking about increasing performance, it all goes back to what I just said. There are fundamentals that you have to have, and there's skills acquisition before you get into skills mastery. And there are tools that we can use in order to induce stress to help people to understand how to perform better within those stressful situations. In fitness, we add more weight, right? We add more reps. We add more intensity, usually done with more weight. That's what people usually do. We can add more volume. There are different variables that we can tweak within the training program and the system to the system of training, of however we're applying that system or that program to create more stress. Again, in the point of adding more stress is to have an advantageous effect, right? To get some type of a training effect that helps us be stronger, faster, recover better, whatever happens to be. And in firearms training, it usually winds up being how fast can we do something, right? Again, and if you don't have the fundamental things being basic mechanics, as you start to layer this stuff on, I think it can become pretty problematic, but it can also be really valuable, just like in training.
Well, there's levels to this, as Meek Mill would say, right? I know, relating it to CrossFit, there's Olympic weightlifting. I know people like Joe Rogan are like, why the hell are people Olympic weightlifting for time?
Yep.
Right? Because time is another stress inducer, right? Why are they doing that? Well, nobody should be doing that until they master the foundations, or I shouldn't say master, until they get proficient at the foundation of Olympic weightlifting. Right. And so on a weekly basis, I do some sort of Olympic weightlifting movement with some sort of either machine or body weight anaerobic movement, meaning like burpees or aerodyne bike or rower, something of that nature mixed with it, because I no longer want to clean and jerk 300 plus pounds. I want to just rep out 225 to get, let's say, 80% of my max after anaerobic conditioning, right? And so the test is, can I keep my mechanics? Can I keep my form? Can I keep the wheels on the bus after inducing some cardio stress, some like energy system stress, right? And the benefits for that are a few different things. That's just overall fitness. That gives me some strength, some power, some explosiveness. But then again, cardio is usually what's best for your overall health, right? So those are the types of things that you do in CrossFit. Now, what we're seeing in the firearms world is like, hey man, you have a fucking sandbag, you have a wheelbarrow, you have some kettlebells, but I don't understand, like, what's the end goal? What's the stimulus here, right? Like, do you actually understand what you're doing, or are you trying to like sell people some glamour by having them run, like we were talking about earlier, suicides or sprints with shooting, doing kettlebell swings, as Raul from Rogue Methods would say, you know, I've never seen kettlebells on the battlefield before. It's something to that effect that he told me one time. I thought that was funny because I brought up this type of thing, like, to ask him how he feels about it, right? I know that me personally, I like, with firearms training, I like doing things like burpees and running mixed with firearms training because it's basically a stress test, but it's not just for time. I'm also to that point in my training, though, to where I could give a fuck if I have like a sub 1 second draw, one shot at 5 yards, right? But I do give a fuck about how my mechanics start to break down after piecing together
Under
running, some sort of energy system training, like an Airdyne bike. Let's say you're doing, 15-second sprint on an Airdyne bike, full blown, going into draw and then 3 shots at 5 yards. That feels much different than just drawing and shooting 3 shots from 5 yards. But the stimulus and the goal there would be to almost get to puke mode because you're going full sprint on the Airdyne bike, right? And it's low impact. That's why I would choose Airdyne versus like actually running, because you can only actually sprint so many times in your life. And then hopefully I try to make the wheels fall off in a controlled environment and see where I stand, which that would be like simulating me going full bore anaerobic sprint from A to B in a real life scenario, because I only train firearms like training for life saving reasons, self-defense, that type of thing, right? So that would put me in like the red zone with mental and energy system fatigue. That would be my point for doing that. My thing is, on the internet, I'm seeing a bunch of people throw kettlebells and barbells in the mix, and I'm just like, so what's the deal there? Like, what's the end goal? Do you even understand what an energy system is? Do you even understand like what it's doing to their heart rate or how realistic it is? I think things like the sandbag training might be realistic because you do have to like carry odd objects. Maybe on the battlefield, I wouldn't know because I've never been in war, but I'm just assuming, right? Especially, working in a team environment, having to do the dummy drags and things like that, that makes sense. But aimlessly running around, not having true distance, not having true rhyme or reason, that's a dangerous, slippery slope, especially when my whole specialty is movement and I'm constantly watch people running around with guns. I'm watching them with terrible muzzle awareness after getting under physical fatigue, right? So, okay, good job. You created physical fatigue. You created like energy system fatigue. And now you have people running around like dumbasses that you didn't actually teach them how to run around with a gun. You didn't teach them, you didn't build those foundations up enough to constantly be running them to the ground with a live firearm, right? And again, it comes down to like why we're doing kettlebells and burpees. I see burpees being somewhat applicable to like actual battle. But I mean, again, are you doing 10 burpees or are you doing 1 or 2 and then getting into a battle? That's pretty realistic.
What's the goal?
But what's the end goal here, right? The only reason why you're never going to see a bike on the battlefield, but like I said, an Airdyne bike gets you to puke mode pretty quick with low impact on the joints. Yeah. And so I can go on a whole rant about this, but I just actually don't think people have rhyme or reason. They just start throwing physical stress into like drills, and then they don't actually know how many is enough to do to people. But really, 1 or 2, no matter how good a shape you're in, is all you need to understand what that feels like, to test, I guess you can say, how good are your fundamentals? How good is your draw? Because when shit really hits the fan and when you really start to physically fall apart, I can tell you from experience with CrossFit that your Olympic weightlifting form might start slowly falling apart. You might get early arm bend and you're clean. You might not pop the hips into full extension when you start getting super tired and your eyes are flickering and you're drooling. You know what I mean? When that kind of shit happens, maybe your mechanics fall apart. But that's also us testing in a competitive nature, not training to be better. Right? And so again, are we testing or teaching? And I'm seeing this often in the firearms world. And I'm trying to ask people who might know better than me, like I said, like what they think about this kind of stuff. Like I referenced Rug Methods. Raul's in great shape and he does a ton of physical stuff. And yeah, he's somebody who's not 100% a fan of that. I think he just likes like the running component. And even then, not even long distance. Like it's a couple sprints and then you're done.